Well, my assignment on Sunday was to photograph the transfer of Lee Harvey Oswald from the city jail to the county jail. And they had given us a tentative time when they would move him. And so I remember going down that Sunday morning, no traffic on the road to speak of, and I was going down Ross Avenue. I was the only car on the road, and then I saw this truck coming toward me, and just as he got past me, he backfired. And, you know, after the two previous days, you know, I was kind of a basket case anyway, but this tremendous backfire, you know, and it just had me thinking all over again about Friday and being in the motorcade. Anyway, when I got to the police station, I went up to the press room. There was no security to speak of. No one checked my credentials or anything. I went up to the press room, and eventually we realized that we weren't going to be able to, that they weren't going to transfer him when they originally said. But finally they took the newsman down to the basement, and we still didn't know how long it would be before they brought him down. Finally, they did say that they would be bringing him down momentarily, and that we were to pick a spot that we would shoot from and stay there. Now, in the basement, there was an armored carrier that they had started to back down the ramp, and it would not clear the entrance. The top was too high, so they left it at the top of the ramp. And then they brought in two unmarked cars, I believe, two or three. I believe it was two. And they were lined up, and the news media we were all in kind of it grouped around a little open area. And so I felt like I should pick a spot and, you know, where I could get the best picture, and my idea was to pre-focus on a spot about 10 feet away. It was a pretty routine assignment, really. We had shot prisoner transfers before. It was not an unusual situation except for the people involved. So I picked my place, and I remember Frank Johnston was standing right next to me, the UPI photographer. And Jack Beers was a little further to the right, and he was standing up on a little wall to get a high angle. The AP photographer was somewhere up the ramp, close to the armored vehicle. I think his idea was to get a picture of Oswald being put in the van, assuming he was going to be put in the van. So, excuse me. They told us that they were bringing him down, and so we all got ready, and I had pre-focused. I was looking through the camera. They brought him out into the open space. Now, my plan was to shoot a frame there and then back up the ramp as far as I could go and continue shooting whatever I could get as they put him in one of the cars or one of the vehicles. So as he stepped into the clear space, I was aware of someone stepping out in front of me to block my view, and I remember leaning a little bit over the fender of the car because Frank Johnston was crowding me on the right, and it all happened very fast. He only took maybe 2 steps, brought his arm up. I was fortunate that I was already looking through the camera. If I had not been looking through the camera, if I would have had to react to the shooting and bring the camera up, I wouldn't have gotten the shot I got. So he fired and I fired almost simultaneously. And then all hell broke loose. One policeman, I remember, running up over the police car, over the hood, over the top, down the trunk, and into the pile as they were wrestling Ruby to the ground. I shot another frame right away, but I knew my strobe would not recycle that fast. It was taking about 6 seconds to recycle, so I knew it would be a dark frame. But I shot anyway, and then the next thing, there was a policeman with his hand on my camera shoving me back along with the other newsman. And so we had that to contend with. And finally, after they had removed both Ruby and Oswald into the building, then we were kept there until they brought an ambulance in and transported Oswald. I got another picture of Oswald being put in the ambulance. So then I recall we had to stay down there in the basement for a while, a good while, before we were even allowed to go up in the building. And I went and called the paper, told them I felt like I had something good, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to look like. And so to make a long story short, about 2 hours later, I was able to go back to the paper after they sent another photographer to relieve me. Then I went back to the paper, processed my film, and our chief photographer was standing right outside the door. And, well, first of all, when I came into the building, when I came into the newsroom, everybody was gathered around the wire machine looking at Jack Beer's picture. It was taken maybe a second before mine. And somebody said, do you have anything this good? You know, everybody was really on edge. So I said, I'll let you know in a minute. So I went in and processed my film, and I remember letting out a big yell. And our chief photographer, he ran out to the newsroom and says, we got something good. We'll bring you a print. So we made a wet print, carried it out there, passed it around, showed everybody. Then we got busy making some good prints. And then the rest of the day was, I can't remember much about it, really. But I went home with a big headache that night, I'll tell you.
He also went home with a Pulitzer Prize.